Good morning, everybody. Hey, welcome to this Friday, the 15th of March, halfway through the month. Hope you're doing well as we close out the week. Yesterday was a pretty red day across the board with the Russell 2000 getting beat up the most. We'll talk about that and more when Dave joins us here in just a few seconds. Hey, before we do that, though, let's not forget that we live in a world where there are so many things that we just don't have any control over. I want you to know that you can take control of your investment portfolio, but you need to know the amount of risk that you have in that portfolio, and you need to know the amount of risk you should have in that portfolio based on your current circumstances. Give me a call at 863-382-0037 to schedule your core retirement analysis. With that, we got Dave coming up next.
I love rock and roll. I love French fries, peanut butter, rare beef, and making money in the stock market. My name is Dave, and it's time for the check on your finances and see whether or not you can make some money on the market today. On the phone, Phillip Statler from Statler Financial Services in downtown Sebring. Phillip, good morning. How are you today?
Hey, good morning, Dave. As we finish up this week of March, we're halfway through the month, and before you know it, we're going to be saying the quarter's over.
No poop. It's not a good way to end the quarter, setting the table. It looks to me like the investors kind of digested the wholesale inflation numbers that we had yesterday and said, whoops. Dow ended up falling about 1/3%. That broke a winning streak, down 138. S&P was down by about 15. NASDAQ down by 49. It wasn't what you'd call a major sell-off, but it was definitely a bloom is off the rose day, wasn't it?
It really was, and let's mention the Russell 2000 here, Dave, because it was a huge loser. It was down almost 2% yesterday off of their close. It was like down almost $41 yesterday. So that was a big drop. And let's just throw a little crypto in there, would you?
Yeah, Bitcoin. We were kind of cracking wise about that a couple of weeks ago when it hit 60, saying, well, that means it's probably going to be down to about 30 in a few weeks. Made a start in that direction yesterday, didn't it?
It did. It hit an all-time high of $73,700. And when I looked this morning, it was at 67,809. That's about an 8% decline in about 24 hours.
So all you guys that bought it at 70, well, we're sorry for you, aren't we?
Yeah, exactly. It's still one of those things that, and it's dropping a little bit more even as we speak. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that you and I pretty much agree on this. That Bitcoin has potential to be a big money maker, but I think I'd put it in the same category of the money that I sometimes spew away on Hard Rock Bet or something, because it's kind of on that level more than it is an investment. Wouldn't you agree?
That's the camp I'm in anyway.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I ain't got enough to lose, so I ain't got enough to invest in it down the line. A lot of the downticks yesterday, and I was kind of, when we got on the phone before we went on the air, saying, hey, maybe Bitcoin is our more accurate inflation fear gauge than the equities are. But the conventional wisdom I'm hearing now is the sentiment is starting to shift into kind of what you and I have been thinking for a while. Next interest rate decrease, they moved it from March down to June, and now a bunch of analysts are saying, well, maybe July could be the earliest time we see the Fed drop interest rates. They're starting to come around to our point of view for the last couple of months, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. It's amazing how slow they are to catch on to what we know already, right? So,
well, we may be crowing, but we kind of have nailed that one dead on, haven't we?
Yeah, so far so good, and so the numbers are, and I've had some people that I've talked to thinking that, well, maybe we could go actually the other direction with some of the numbers we're seeing, that it may impress upon them to actually increase another 1/4% somewhere along the line before we get done.
Well, when we did the consumer price index, and it was as big a surprise as it was last week, I kind of broached that topic, and I said, decreases don't look very smart when everything's trending in the wrong direction. An increase wouldn't be any fun to see happen, but you put it in a vacuum. Now we've got the producer price index kind of suddenly going upticking against the trend downward that it had. It wouldn't be a completely unreasonable thing to do to go up again.
No, not with some of the numbers we're seeing, and it would I bet it would get everybody's attention.
Yeah, a seismograph might be the appropriate response to the market at the time. Tidbits that are out this morning. The New York Fed put out their monthly manufacturing index. I don't think it's probably going to be a big market mover, but it went down for another month. The tidbit of the morning that's been on the top of the news is if you order an Egg McMuffin, they might need to take your order on paper because McDonald's had a computer hack. Evidently, they depend upon centralized servers. So they got a crash, and a whole bunch of McDonald's franchises have actually closed because they don't want to try to do their paperwork on paper anymore.
Oh my, that's I hadn't heard that one. I hadn't seen that one, but that's that could be pretty devastating to McDonald's.
I honest to God, didn't realize that they had centralized servers across there. But the headline on the national news was that some franchises actually closed the stores until they could get the computer put back together again. A bunch of other ones are now taking the orders for Egg McMuffins on paper, just like they used to. The other thing I hit, kind of bouncing off the national news, with all the congressional arguments about TikTok saying they want to ban it and force a sale. TikTok released revenue figures. They've hit the $16 billion mark in terms of billings for TikTok. I think as a takeover target, that might look kind of inviting, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking so. And, I was reading the other day that Mnuchin, the old Treasury Secretary, is looking to put a group together to actually buy TikTok.
Yeah, I saw him on one of the financial news networks yesterday or the day before saying, this looks like a pretty good investment. He's looking to put the money together. He's actually cheering for Congress to try to force a sale. Other stuff going on. We talked about the mortgage index yesterday. It's spiking again this week, according to one of my reports. Interest rates on a 30-year mortgage have fallen for a second straight week. We're now down to 6.74%. And folks that bought the 7.5% mortgages are saying, well, not the 1% they say, but boy, I think I'll refinance, and the index next week could be a pretty good-sized growth off refinances.
Yeah, it could. You got to wait maybe a little bit further down the line before we get there, but you'll start seeing refis as soon as that number goes up. I mean, the 30-year Treasury keeps creeping up, Dave. It's earlier into last week, it was down about 4.1, 4.2. It's up to 4.4 now. So it keeps creeping up a little bit.
And that we got to assume is sentiment indicating that now investors are starting to figure it's going to go up, or at the very least not go down as fast as we expected it to, as far as the reference interest rate is concerned from the Federal Reserve. We're kind of at the end of earnings season, not a whole heck of a lot going on that's exciting, but Alta's got a location here in town. How did they do last quarter?
So Alta, they actually, for the quarter, they did well. They beat on earnings and revenue for their fourth quarter. However, they issued some full year earnings guidance that came in at the low end of the forecast. And so that had them tumbling earlier this morning and continuing even more now. It's down 8% this morning before they get going. So it's
that's almost like Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a big jump. I mean, I got a lot of downers today. Adobe came out and they also had a good quarter as far as earnings and revenue. And they announced a $25 billion share buyback. But they, again, a weaker than expected revenue guidance for this current quarter has them down 11.75% this morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean you're not talking about little moves this morning either, are you?
No, I'm not. And then I got another one. It's not a familiar name, but it's called PagerDuty, which is an IT company that has some specialization. Now they came in and they did miss across the board on earnings and on revenue, but they also came out with lower expectations for this next quarter as well. they're down almost, well, 9.5%.
You're just all full of merry
Hey,
sunshine this morning,
I'm
aren't
trying
you,
to
Phillip?
find. I'm gonna have one at the end that I'll close with. It that'll be a big winner. But all the rest of them, Dave, have been pretty dismal. Pretty dismal across the board. I mean, I've got another company, Zumas. Shares are down 11%. They're a specialty retailer, and it seems to be the same thing. Weak outlook. Not sure how retail is going to do. I do have, well, and then off of the face of Bitcoin, right? We have the likes of Coinbase and MicroStrategy and Marathon Digital. They're all down because they rely on and are targeted to the Bitcoin numbers, so they're all down
Sure.
this morning. But so I do have one for you that
Okay.
You'll like this one. Now it's a smaller company. It's called Catalytics. I think I said that right. They're an advertising company. And so they, for the first time since 2019, before their EBITDA, which is before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, they actually were positive for the first time since 2019. Their first quarter came in higher than expected. Let's see what this trading is actually. So they're not a cheap stock. I mean, they're trading at $11, but they're up 45% this morning.
Whoa, cool. An advertising company making money.
Yeah, exactly. Who ever heard of that, right?
Yeah, don't tell the boss that can be done. It'll just make my life hard. Resetting the table, it was kind of an off day yesterday on Wall Street, except for the more adventurous small stocks. It was an incremental drop, but nevertheless, it was still an off day. 45 minutes before we open, what are we looking at today?
Yeah, we got a mixed bag right now, Dave. Mostly green, but a little red and mixed in there. We got the Dow is up, almost 0.2%, not quite. The S&P 500 is up about 0.1%. NASDAQ 100 is down less than 0.1%, but still down. And Russell 2000's up about 0.25%. On the other side, we still got silver making some strides up almost 1% this morning at $25.30 an ounce. Gold trailing down about 0.2, and then crude oil it's down 0.5%, but it's right where it was yesterday when you and I talked, Dave. It's at $80.89 a barrel right now.
That's too dang close to 81.
I agree.
And I'm low on gas, just what I wanted to find. Overseas markets, the European market, the Asian Rim markets are kind of mixed. Everybody's off except for the mainland Chinese markets, where evidently the government issued a buy order. Everything else is pretty much in red ink this morning. Over in Europe, they're looking at our futures and going, well, it doesn't look too bad. We'll live with it. Overall, European index is up by a little under 0.33% halfway through their trading day. Getting a beat on retirement is something that everybody ought to be thinking about, even if you're 40, because there's some strategies that you need to know in order to maximize your take as well. How do I find you to get my analytics in line for retirement, Phillip?
Yeah, that's why I developed the core retirement design to help folks design that retirement they always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-382-0037 to schedule your core retirement analysis. And then join us this weekend for the Statler Financial Radio Show, 6 a.m. and noon on Saturday, 10 a.m. Sunday morning on Highlands News Talk 730, 95.3 FM.
And back here again next week with an update every morning about this time. Phillip, I'll catch you next week, all right?
All right, man. You have a great weekend.
Thank you much. Have a good race weekend. It's 105.7 Light FM and Statler Financial Services, Phillip Statler.
Hey, folks, again, I want to thank you for joining us today. Have a great weekend. I look forward to speaking to you next week. Take care now. Bye.